Hello and welcome to Video Gamer UK's extra special podcast about The Last of Us. If you've not finished The Last of Us yet, then turn away right now. Just turn your ears right around and walk them out that door.
Or just watch this on mute if it's on YouTube.
Or watch it on mute. I promise there'll be no spoilers in the static JPEG picture. I mean, you could just go and watch something else, to be honest, if you want.
Just come back when you've played it. This is going to be spoiler crazy.
There are more spoilers here than a max power car show.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's good, mate. I like that.
You've been saving that one for a while.
No.
That's fresh Scammell.
Yeah. I don't know what to say now.
They just whaps them out.
I've blown my load on the spoiler thing.
Good.
Anyway,
making sex references already.
So also we should just note that a couple of people asking me this morning, does this mean there's not going to be a normal podcast this week? No. So we're still doing a normal podcast tomorrow. So if you see this coming up and you're like, what? But I can't listen to this podcast. This is an outrage. This is a special. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that enough of us had played it and had a bit of time to think about the ending and think about the whole story.
And give you time to finish it as well.
That's true.
We don't want everyone seeing a spoiler cast and going, oh, it's too early.
Because it's not the sort of game, it's not a very long game, but it's not the sort of game you want to rush either. And actually, it took me longer to complete than I thought it would for that reason. Is I kept being
15 hours, I think, is around about the time.
17 it took me.
15 to 18 seems to be
12 and a half.
I think I was probably about 12 or 13.
I looked
blitzed
everywhere.
it. Blitzed it.
But I was taking my time. I was looking at things with torches. Anyway, so let's just kick it off. I mean, overall, what do you think?
I love it. I think the more I think about it, maybe it's not the best game of this generation. It's definitely up there. It'd definitely be a contender, but it's definitely the one that probably had the biggest impact on me. And I think that's just because of the way it deals with everything. Like, it never, ever, ever does the entertainment thing of, it never says, I'm going to try and make you happy. It says, we've come up with a world, we've come up with characters, and we've decided what they're like, and therefore we'll see that through to its natural conclusion, which in this sense is just sadness, really. Sadness and, harrowing nature throughout, and just like, there's not much hope left in this world, and everyone's a bit of a dick.
It's not all sadness.
It's pretty much all sadness.
It's sadness in the grand like the big picture.
Yeah.
But in terms of Joel and his immediate family, he's kind of happier at that point than he had been in a while, I think, because...
Yeah, but his happiness is at the expense of the entire human race.
Yeah, no, but he's like, this is all about him at this point, rather than like saving everyone.
Well, do we need to explain what we're actually talking about?
Well, I think there might be people if people don't know what we're talking about by now, then they probably shouldn't be listening.
I guess there might, but there might be some people listening who are like, "I'm never going to play The Last of Us," but I'd love to know what's going on about it. And
we're talking about the ending, haven't we? We've gone straight into the ending, which ends on.
Well, actually, can I just say, if that's you, please don't listen to this, because honestly, I got really a bit upset this morning when I realised that a lot of people I know have been saying, "Oh, I haven't got a PlayStation 3, so I'm just going to watch Last of Us playthrough on YouTube."
I've seen a lot of that, yeah.
And that seems to be a thing that people do a lot now, actually. People, instead of buying a game, they'll just watch somebody play it because it's cheaper. But actually, this is a huge fault of games as a medium, and it's because of the fact they've become so padded out that they have become, a lot of third-person shooters particularly, are just, you complete the level, then you get another bit of story.
Yeah.
And it is just shooting gallery story. But The Last of Us does a couple of things in it which need to be experienced firsthand.
Totally agree.
And it's amazing that games are only starting to do this more frequently. Another game that does it really well is the Walking Dead series, which does a lot of stuff which, like, you can watch somebody playing it on YouTube, but it will be rubbish. It won't be the same. But people know that with The Walking Dead because it's like, it's decisions.
Yeah.
So you have to make decisions. But a well-crafted game doesn't need to have decisions to make you feel like that. And obviously, we always go back to this, but the Shadow of the Colossus is the kind of one of the defining games of that. If it put you in the shoes of somebody where you had no decisions you could make, but you feeling what it was like to be in those shoes was the experience. You could watch somebody doing it and you'd be like, oh, that's how you kill that monster. You wouldn't be like, oh, God, I've just killed one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Talking of decisions, though, I was expecting to be able to make a decision at the end of a...
I did too. I think I've said this a few times now to people that have finished it. I finished the game and I instantly redid the last chapter because I thought you could leave the hospital. Because obviously, in case you want some context, obviously you get to the end of the game, the Fireflies have taken Ellie, she's hooked up to a machine. They're basically going to extract her brain to find out how the hell she managed to...
Yeah, and I love that I hadn't noticed that, because there are actually ways you can notice that. Like, at one point there were some x-rays on the wall in the hospital which showed, like, fungal growth in the brain. I haven't clocked.
There was some, like, recordings saying that her brain looked fine and stuff.
Yeah.
So... potentially, I don't know what they were going to do to her.
It was going to be a big waste of time.
Yeah,
maybe
that's one of the arguments I've read is that, like, it's bad that he didn't let them do it, but they were like a thrown together scientific lab. The world had collapsed. What were they actually going to achieve by killing her?
True, but
it could have been a waste of time. Yeah,
Going on because I sort of took it at face value. I took it as if they open her up, they will save the world.
Sure.
So when I got to the hospital room, I thought, because obviously, video games, but who cares? The guy says, "Don't come any closer," and then he holds that position, and you can leave him in that position for about an hour if you want to. He won't do anything until you approach him. So I thought maybe I can leave. So again, I redid the last chapter, thinking I can just walk away, but you can't. You can't. You have to save her. You have to kill that guy. You have to leave. And going back to your point about whoever said it about decisions. That's one of the things I loved about it the most. Is like you said, because that is the decision Joel would make. Now, it's almost like that irrational thing where they go, "Oh, you're playing a game. You don't actually have any choice." And I don't think that was Naughty Dog's intent. But I loved that. I was like, this is what Joel, the character who I've been with over 15 hours or whatever, would do. And they've built up that character. So the fact that I can't do anything else, I find fascinating because I'm in control of him and I don't want to make that decision, but I have no choice.
You say
only games can do that.
You say that's what he would do. It surprised me that he could kill an innocent as easily as that.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, because
he's
he's
that throughout.
Yeah,
like,
he's done some bad shit.
Oh no, I know that.
And
I know, and
they're nothing. They don't mean they're people, but they're not people he knows. Like it's like
that's the way the world's become.
I know. I know it became a dog eat dog world and all that sort of. But you never see him attack someone who isn't armed or who isn't.
Oh yeah, that torture scene in the winter when he basically wants to know where she is. That is just the nonchalance with which he's messing those guys up. It's just like he's done this before. And worse.
It surprised me because as a man who is our hero in inverted commas, I was like, you can't do that. But he can, because that's how I assume that's how he has survived.
I'll tell you what, the genius of that separation section was so clever, because so many games have done that in the past, but they did it for such fantastic reasons. First of all, when you split up the pair of the characters, it means that you get to see Joel without her, which means you get to see Joel's nature in a more pure sense. Almost, you see his nastier side immediately because he's not there. But also when it showed her, a lot of games will do that when it's like they'll put you in the role of the person you're protecting to hammer home the fragility of that character and be like, oh, look at how weak they are. Oh, it's so important that you're looking after them. When actually the opposite was true. She's obviously physically weak, and in fights, if you get caught, you can get killed really easily.
Yeah.
But in many regards, she's, she can survive. And if anything, that whole section when she's on her own really shows you that in some regards she has as good a chance of surviving as Joel does on her own. And it makes that ending even more difficult, because this whole notion of being like, oh, but Joel needs to protect her. I don't know. And actually what you were saying is, I completely agree, and I think why The Last of Us will be remembered in many years' time is Shadow of the Colossus is a game that everyone remembers because it put you in an interesting position and forced you to go through a set of actions that maybe you didn't want to. But it's not something that you could really relate to. It's something that was emotionally powerful. But in The Last of Us...
You don't ever climb up the hairy beast and stab it in its magic point. Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of me kicking a swan to death. It's just, it's not going to happen. I promise. But The Last of Us is so ingrained with real world stuff that it forces you to go through a situation which is very human and relate to that and see it from that person's perspective. And going back to the ending and what we're talking about, this idea, it's almost like the reality of whether or not it could have saved the world or not doesn't matter. It's the fact that she clearly, from just the way she was behaving in the leading up to that, she knew that that she was probably, this was going to be the end of the line for her. Yeah. But that's what she wanted. But then it wasn't about what she wanted.
I'm not sure she did want it in the end.
Well, no, in the end,
because that kind of...
She talked about...
There's a sense
I think
of guilt,
she was guilty that she felt guilty that she was alive.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure she felt that she had to die to save everyone. I don't think it was...
I think she was prepared for it.
I think she maybe expected she had to, but I'm not sure she wanted to.
Okay, that's fair enough. But that line when she said, when's my turn? I think she'd been building up to this for a while. I mean, going back to your point as well, I totally agree, because I think that whole conversation at the end, I think, underlines your point about her being a survivor, because obviously she survived.
Yeah,
when her mate got turned, before she met Tess and Marlene is the head of the Fireflies.
Yeah,
before she met Joel, she's still alive. Her mate. I mean, obviously, technically she would be dead, but she had this immunity to whatever that may be. But still, the other reasons could have killed her. There's hunters and stuff that didn't. But yeah, just that conversation at the end made me think that. I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, I'm less convinced about this now after chatting about it with other people. But I do think that she had accepted the fact that this was her fate.
The reason that tiny conversation at the end was so powerful for me was the fact that it was clear that she she had accepted that her death would maybe save the world, and she was prepared to do that. And obviously, one of the most genius things about the game was the way it did jump through the seasons and it did jump through time. Is it meant it didn't have to do that awkward thing. Video games not good at conversations, right?
Yes,
and
true.
it means that after things happen, they always have the thing of sitting down and characters going, "Oh, are you okay? Can we talk about this?" And they have an awkward video game conversation. Then you'll get back to shooting things, and it'll be almost like that's resolved it. If you can just go, a month has passed, then it means that you can then skip all of the repercussions directly.
But you know it's happened.
But have the sense that it's happened, have the sense those conversations have occurred.
And they had little discussions about, I think, was it the start of fall, and they were talking about what happened to Henry and Sam. Is it Sam?
Yeah.
And like there were little mentions of like her talking about it and stuff, but it was no like we're distraught talking about it, sat around a fire or anything.
It's when they turn up at the university as well, when they're on horseback.
Absolutely.
And you can just tell their relationship has developed because she asks him about his wife.
And he's
who
not snapping,
before he snaps, he just says, can't talk about it. And it's very nice, very kind of quaint. But also, just that whole scene, and this is, I think, The Last of Us does better than any game ever. Nothing happens for like 20 minutes when you're exploring that university. But it's lovely. You're just experiencing it with them. You're letting their relationship grow. And it feels real. It feels real. It feels like this is genuinely something I can see, forging, even though it's all predetermined. It's all written.
Oh, the
it's the best
pacing
pacing
so
of any game
good.
ever. Yeah, it's perfect.
I love the fact that it doesn't... I love the fact that it goes, these are the fungus dudes. These are the clickers, which is what dudes that have been like infected for a long time.
Yeah.
And then these guys that bloaters, these are things that have been infected for a long, long time. And then it doesn't go, and here are the scrabblers who can climb up walls. And here are the spitters.
Super bloater.
Here's a super... And it doesn't do the Gears of War thing of just like increasingly ramping up ridiculous enemies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do the thing of increasingly ramping up the weapons. I actually think one of the few...
Or the battles either.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing is you kind of expect... You have these early encounters against loads of clickers and stuff in the cities, and you kind of think, oh man, this is really hard. Imagine how hard it's going to be later in the game. And it isn't. It's because actually some of the most intense experiences you have with a kind of zombie-ish things are at the start, which makes sense because you're in a really infected area.
I think by the end, you're more used to what you can and can't do around them. There was a bit where, I can't remember, it was like, it's very watery. It's near the end.
Yeah.
And there's a load of
I know what you mean.
clickers
With his buses under the
and
tunnel,
runners and stuff around. And I didn't kill a single one. It's the first time in the entire game, really, that I had done anything without killing anyone. And I just snuck through, timed it right and everything, got right through it. And I felt like it was a much worse situation than anywhere else in the game in terms of sheer numbers, because I've been playing it for like 12 hours, whatever. I knew that I could sneak past them and stuff. And
the mechanics sort of thing is, again, this is why, for me, I am going to make a video this week, actually, just discussing the kind of dissecting this game. A bit like we're doing now, but with like some examples and stuff. But and in the video, obviously, it's a bit different. But I think what really sets this apart from BioShock, and I think some people will be like, "Oh, don't compare it to BioShock; it's different." But
there are similarities.
But there are some big similarities and some big parallels. And I think that what's interesting about this game is you don't really have to defend its mechanics. Like, I think it's a very strong game mechanically, and I loved the way that the resources worked, and I love the way that the feeling of like, do you want to fight or do you want to sneak through, was not a moral choice, and it was not a player style choice. It wasn't like, oh, do you want to get an achievement for ghosting it? Or do you want to be like...
It was like a scenario choice, wasn't it?
It was, every circumstance, you just look at the scenario, and sometimes you'd be like, I've got loads of ammo, screw it, I'm going to take these guys out.
Yep.
And then, because often it meant if you did that, it meant you could scavenge the area more thoroughly. And it meant if you thought, there might be some resources nearby, screw it, I'm going to wipe them out. It meant that you were making decisions in the same way that Joel would.
Yeah,
that's it. Incredibly smart.
Yeah, that's his highlight throughout, is that they never ever feel like they do something that you wouldn't believe they would do. And that's so hard. I mean, let's say it's 15 hours. I mean, some people go a bit less, some people go a bit more. But to do that over that period of game without ever once going, well, that doesn't really make sense, which is something that a lot of games have thrown at them when they try and do characterization. It doesn't do it once.
No.
Joel, mostly because he's just older, obviously we experience his... I do want to talk about the start. We'll get to that in a sec. From that point, everything he does then makes sense, as long as you keep tying it back to what you know about him. And, Naughty Dog deserve credit for that, because it's not like... I mean, Nathan Drake was a great character because he was charming and lovely, and you just think, I'd love him to be my mate. But he wasn't very... he didn't have much depth to him.
It's pretty much blank canvas.
Yeah, exactly. It was just,
Captain Adventure, isn't it?
Exactly, which was awesome. It worked perfectly for the Uncharted games. But this guy is, like I said, when I sit back now, I look at everything he did, and it all makes sense. And if anything, the things you learn about him... explain him more. Maybe even things you didn't... Well, no, Joel wouldn't be like that because, I love Joel. I'm in control of him. But actually, as you get to know him.
He never feels like a hero, does he? Which is something that games always do.
Yeah, exactly.
Every other video game, they try to make you feel like a hero.
Well, this is what I mean, and this is why I think that video games are only just getting to the stage where they're feeling brave enough to do this. And this is why, again, Shadow of the Colossus was amazing because it put you in the boots of a murderer. Like, you played a murderer, Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
And games don't dare to do that. To be like, yeah, you're going to be a character that murders things. And obviously it gave you the spin of being like...
And that was all for the sake of one...
For the sake of one person. And, you know, so you're murdering things for love, but you're a murderer.
That's a great moral quandary as well. I use the word quandary, I'm an awful person. But
precisely.
That's why it's so good.
Well, it makes you think. But also, what's incredible about The Last of Us, and I think this is something I want to go into real detail with the video, explaining exactly how they've done it and why, but is the fact that it gives you that thing. And The Walking Dead does this fantastically of giving you shared knowledge with the character, which means that there's nothing the character knows that you don't know, and you don't know anything that the character doesn't know. But also using the actual mechanics of the way that the combat and the situations work to make you feel like you're constantly assessing situations from exactly the same way. You're not going, oh, how can I clear this building out in the way to get the most XP? Or how can I unlock this achievement for 20 headshot kills? Because maybe there are trophies for that stuff, but I didn't really ever get a sense of that. I don't know. I haven't looked
No, I
at
don't think there are. I don't think there are trophies for that.
No. So it just felt like...
Dave would know.
No, I think there's trophies. I think there's trophies linked to the upgrade system and things like that. But there's nothing for like changing.
Even the upgrade system and the way that the finding stuff in the environments worked. I love the way that there was... it wasn't one straight progression. You didn't get to like 2/3 of the game realize that you missed a toolbox that let you upgrade the shotgun. The way of making it saying, oh, you need 3 toolboxes, there's 4 toolboxes. I mean, even if you went through and didn't find all of the toolboxes,
it's always pieces in there.
You'd still be like, you know, that's fine. I can still upgrade my guns quite a bit. And even it never really felt like you could upgrade much, really.
Well, it's like the medical pack as well, isn't it? What do you need? You need rag and alcohol. Like, it's just so. Yeah. It's just. You know, that's not. It could be material A and material B, but the fact that they could ground it in the real world, just again makes you go, okay, I get this. This is what I would do too. And obviously, there's gamey because it heals him and stuff. Obviously, it wouldn't, but that doesn't. It works within the environment they've created. And it's super smart the way that they only let you carry 3 of each item, and B, the way they have the materials for a Molotov cocktail and a med kit being exactly the same. So you have to decide. Because it means you end up getting cocky. You're like, well, I've already got 2 med kits. Screw it, I'm going to make some Molotovs. And then you end up throwing the Molotovs, and then 2 minutes later, you're like, I could really do with a med kit now. No, it's true. It's also like going the start as well. This is something I picked up on, and it's not a big point, but just talking about Joel as a character again. When his daughter obviously dies at the end of the prologue, gives him the watch, he never says thank you. Now, that is a weird thing to pick up on. Obviously, you can tell he's appreciative of it, and he makes the joke, and she says, "Oh, I'm a drug dealer now." But he obviously like is thankful that she's done it, but he never thanks her. And I think that stems off to the fact that he's already troubled by whatever happened with his wife, which we never find out. Yeah, I was about to ask. Do we know what happened there? Never find out what happened with his wife. Never. Maybe she's dead. Maybe she left him. But you can tell, he's got 2 jobs on the go. He's got home late. He's very tired. He's very worn down. This is before his daughter's been killed. And he gives him a watch, which is a very nice thing to do. He never says, "Oh," there's never any emotion from him. I think even I didn't notice it at the time. It was only when I played the prologue again the other day. I think even there, Naughty Dog are hinting at the fact this guy is not in a good scrape here. Then he loses his daughter. Then the world goes to shit. So I think by the time we join him when he's in test 20 years later, he's just it's incredible, isn't it? And I think actually that one of the reasons it's so amazingly effective is the 20-year gap. Yeah. Because so many games will do this thing and they'll go, world's gone to shit. You're this guy. Oh my God, my family are dead. Cry, cry, cry. Shoot, shoot, shoot. And then it will literally take you from that point, like from the point of the breakdown. And then it'll be like, or maybe like a week later. But the fact it does that, it's like, yeah, you're right. I hadn't cottoned onto that, but it is clear that he's clearly a bit troubled. Yeah, already. But it tells you 2 things, and this is what I love about this game right from the start, is the fact that it tells you 2 things. One, that he's just undergone some incredible trauma. Yeah. And the fact that his daughter's been killed by the army and not even... That's the thing. He got killed by the people that are supposed to save you in these kind of situations. You know that, one, he's going to be incredibly angry and incredibly broken emotionally, but also the fact that 20 years have passed and the world is in the current state. You know 2 things about Joel right from the start. One, in some regards, he's going to be emotionally broken, but 2, he survived for 20 years. Yeah, and to survive that for 20 years, you're going to be fucking hardcore. Yeah, and so when it turns out that like people start saying stuff, like when his brother says, he's like, I saved you, I helped you survive. And he's like, yeah, at what cost? I had nightmares about that. Yeah. I still have nightmares. You wonder what he was doing in the early days. Yeah. And you get this impression that what happened broke him so badly that he did actually quite quickly
become a bit of a monster, and it's taken him 20 years to even vaguely start being normal again. Even at the start of the game, those two guys in the street say, "Shut up, man, don't you know who that guy is? That's Joel." Yeah. And the fact that even in Boston you have a rep, and you don't really know what a rep for exactly, but it's a small world now because there's less people.
Yeah,
and
don't mess with that
even
guy.
we were saying, actually, the tiny detail of the fact that no one has second names. You don't need second names. There aren't that many people.
Yeah, exactly.
You can just be Joel, and people know who you are.
Yeah, it's just so well realised. That's all I keep saying. But that's all I came away from. I was like, it's just so much depth to that character, and the start especially. Like,
oh man,
that
broke me. I was in tears.
I was in tears, and I never cry. I'm like a real man. That's a joke. But that's a joke. But honestly, like, so many people have said to me, "Oh, I knew that was going to happen." And yeah, in hindsight, you know what? It is obvious it's going to happen because she's never been
not
mentioned.
like that though. I didn't think it was going to happen like that.
But when I play a game, I never assume anything. I don't think that far ahead. I just experience it. I just play the game. And I think, you know. But also, when it does happen, and I kind of had that realization of, you know, when he jumps down and she goes, I thought, wait a minute. I think she's dead. Well, but my instant reaction was, nah, games don't do that. And the fact that she was, I was like, and his reaction, then, you know, the whole cinematic thing with Naughty Dog coming up with The Last of Us, I just thought, brilliant.
A lot of what happens is fairly obvious. And, you know, I think Steve was saying this the other day. If this was a film, people may come away going, don't know about the story. But it's the way that Naughty Dog does it. And it's even the scene with Tess, when Tess sacrifices herself, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that had a big impact as well. It didn't make me cry. But
just got to underline this fact.
You know, in a typical game, that scene would be, "Oh, you go on ahead, I'll save you," and then you'd watch her kind of blast away at these guys. But
that's so true.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't do anything like that. It's the audio design. You can hear what goes on. You can hear her death. You don't ever see it.
I love that as well.
You can watch it.
Can you watch it?
I watched it, yeah.
You can watch her being shot?
Yeah, you watch it from the balcony. If you just stop at the balcony and look over, you can see it happen.
See, I heard... Do you run upstairs?
I ran through.
That's right. But
And this is actually another thing, which is something that BioShock Infinite did very badly. And what I love about this is Infinite, if it wants you to watch something, it will force you to watch it. But a lot of the time, it will let important things happen in the background that it wants you to watch, but you're not watching it because it hasn't designed it properly. Whereas in The Last of Us, if it wants you to watch it, it's clean cut. It's like, if you need to see it, it's a cutscene. Otherwise, it just does it. And I like the fact that sometimes characters are having conversations in rooms next door to you, and it doesn't do that gameplay thing of somebody's talking to you, but they're like 8 rooms away, and you just hear your character reply, and you're like, what were you replying to there? Like, there's no one here.
Yeah.
But you can hear other characters talking to each other, and it's almost like, if you hear them echoing around, then you can kind of quickly run over and you might be able to hear it, but you might have missed it. And if you missed it, you missed it. Also, there's not one single time in the game I heard a character end one person's audio file by starting a new one. Sometimes they talk over each other slightly, but there was never a point where somebody stopped mid-sentence because somebody else was saying something.
Yeah, no,
and
true.
Simple stuff like that. And even the fact that you can press Y to start a little conversation. It's like those little moments in Infinite where Elizabeth was off going, oh, look at this, it's so beautiful. And I'm like rummaging for bins with a pineapple. Like, I never caught them because I was rummaging through bins for a pineapple. But it just goes... This is a little moment. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it,
the best of those is the high five on the dam.
That's nice. Well, that's something actually that was in The Walking Dead as well, and I think that's a reference to The Walking Dead.
Stupid game. But when that happens, literally because Ellie puts her hand up after doing that, I literally said to myself, if this girl dies, I'm never playing video games again. That was it for me. I was completely won over in this relationship. I was like, I'm ingrained myself now. This is it.
I did expect her to... Well, I didn't expect her to die. I expected Joel to die.
I thought he had died because at the hospital at the end...
Oh, the end of Fall.
When it cut back.
Well, I thought because when you were running out with her and I got shot the first time, so I took the wrong turn, I thought that was it. I thought I'd been killed and they were going to do something to her, but obviously that was just...
in the very end of the game, sorry?
Yeah, the end where you're running through the hospital.
I thought he was dead as well. That's the thing, is that bit was so powerful because it's literally...
That's like the beginning.
It's aping the beginning, isn't it, with his kid again, but this time he won't.
It's the same thing again, but I thought, okay, this is going to be like Shakespearean stuff where it's going to be exactly the same thing's going to happen. There's going to be a burst of fire, but this time you're going to get shot. She's not. But he doesn't even do that. But again, what I find so interesting and tragic about it is it's almost like... The way I saw the ending anyway was this idea that, and you kind of see hints of this all the way through. The reason Joel doesn't want to take her is not... I think the reason Joel doesn't want to take her, and maybe this is just something I resonate with, not in the exact same way, but having this thing of he knows he's been damaged by something in the past, and he knows that to protect himself from that in the future, he needs to avoid it.
I completely agree. Like I did that article, plug on my own stuff about why The Last of Us is so good. You can read it now on VideoGamer.com, obviously. But that's exactly what I wrote.
Yeah.
The reason he tries to pawn her off on his brother isn't because he can't be arsed. He's like, well, either A, she's going to die, and I'm not going to be able to handle that again, or B, I'm going to do what I do eventually up doing, and I can't part with this girl now because I've built up a relationship with her, and she's filled the void of my dead daughter. The good in him, however much it is like, don't do it, Joel, because you'll fuck up the entire. You will ruin all of mankind.
Yeah,
and he knows that.
Well, I think it's more just. I don't even think it's that. I think it's a really selfish thing. I think it's the fact that he knows that, because he says at the end, it took me so many years to survive, to get used to learning how to survive. And I think he doesn't mean like the skill of being able to survive in the wilderness. I think he meant that he was so broken by the death of his daughter.
He needs to find something to.
It's
live
not
for.
even that he's worried about being there when she dies. I think it's just like he's not willing to let that relationship happen, because he knows if that relationship happens, the same thing's going to happen again. And at the end, it's just this thing of like, it's purely selfish. He knows that now it's happened, and the point it really happens is when he saves her from the burning restaurant. When that happens, it's too late, and he knows it's too late. That relationship has been forged, and it's just become, for him, it's not even really about her. It's just the fact that he cannot do it, because he knows that if the same thing happens again, he'll be broken forever. Yeah. And it's just
it's the Shawshank Redemption.
But she knows that as well. Like, yeah.
No, it is. No one seems to agree with me with this, but it's true. Like when you have to watch the film. I'm not going to go into the film, but when Brooks, who's the old guy, been there, been in the Shawshank for 25 years, gets released and he kills himself because he can't handle the outside world. Because as Red said, he's been institutionalized, and that way, the way he survives is through routine by doing what he knows. It's the same with Joel. The way he survives is by finding some way to survive. So for him, if the world, A, if he loses Ellie, and B, if the world goes back to how it was, he knows that that's it. He's dead. He's dead. But not necessarily literally, but figuratively and sort of inside. He's dead because everything he has to fight, there won't be anything to fight for anymore. So therefore, he decides, again, like you say, for completely selfish reasons, I must do this, otherwise my life is over. And I still take the avenue that Ellie does believe.
Yeah, I was about to ask. The question
I don't think
is,
she believes him. I think she knows.
She was in a gown, ready to have an operation.
I
She
know.
said, "What am I wearing?"
I know, but I
And
think,
then, I think she knows that.
but she's still a little girl, and there's still,
smart.
yeah, she's smart. But I think, and again, you can take this about 100 different ways. I think, but I think for me, the way I came aligned with it is she's still a little girl. She's still very innocent. Like when she has that conversation with Sam about being alone, she's still very scared of it all. And I think that she just, because she has so much trust in this guy. I think, again, the other argument is completely acceptable and works just as well. But my gut just says she's like, this guy wouldn't lie to me. Because she's still a kid. She's still innocent to a certain point. And she thinks, he must be telling the truth. Why would he lie to me?
I disagree. I reckon it's more a case of like that she had resigned, basically because it's like when she has that breakdown moment and she says everyone's always abandoned me or died.
Yeah.
And the only person who hasn't is you. I think it's almost like because of that, even though he's still going along with her, she's sort of accepted that she's just going to do this because everything's screwed. And even when she asks him, even though he lies to her, I think she just thinks it doesn't matter, because actually I think she thinks she was happy to go and die for the sake of saving the world. But I think now the realization that he's lying to her because he cares about her, and that that just tells her that he is going to look after her and he's not going to leave. And she just thinks that's enough. And I think that's why she says okay, because that's what I find. I love the fact the last word is okay, because it feels like she's not saying I believe you. She's just saying this is okay.
But I think that you can take that either way. I think that's deliberately so as well. I mean, I think
It's
the best
true.
way someone described it to me, and I obviously can never relate to this properly, is they said to them, obviously they're a dad, they said they came away from that game, that last line going, the theme of this game is, when is it all right to lie to your kids? Well, interesting way to look at it, because that's essentially what he's doing. He's made the choice to lie to his child for whatever reasons. And I think, the real crutch is does what is, and I think, because the way that, I bet you there's about 700 takes of that okay line. There must be, because it's said so ambiguously to the point where whatever you believe these characters to be is the way you're going to. And I actually, bizarrely, I think I'm in the minority. I think most people here believe that she doesn't believe him, right?
Well, I think she knows that what he's saying isn't true, but she just I'm not sure she ever wanted to actually die, but she was going to do it because she felt it was the thing she had to do. And now, she's going to go, he's helped her, she's going to help him.
I think she's smart as well. She's smarter emotionally than she lets on. And I think also, in the way I see it, she knows as well that because of what's happened with his daughter, that it would break him. And I think almost she does it. She goes along with it for him because she knows that if she leaves, he's broken. And I think it's fascinating to not know how broken he was and just have this insinuation of what happened. It's like, obviously, the game is clearly heavily inspired by Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is an awesome book.
It is actually.
And an all-right film. But, I mean, that has some explicit moments, like the bit with the cellar. I'm not going to go any further because if you read the book, it's bloody awesome. It's quite a short book. But there are also lots of just little insinuations about the darkness in this world. And there are things that just details that make you put the pieces together, that make you think, oh, God, this place has gone to hell, without ever having to have anything explicit. And I love that it does that with this because, as you say, as Dave was saying, he's not a hero. He's just a man who survived.
In a world, who you just happen to be telling the story
And it's funny how actually, like, the thing he's most afraid of in this world, right from the start, the thing he's most afraid of is letting himself have an attachment with this little girl.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing he ever really seems scared of throughout the whole game. Yeah. And when it happens, he kind of knows he's fucked.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just, that's why... even when he meets Henry and Sam, sort of halfway through the game, he doesn't give a shit about them.
No,
straight away, he's like, I don't care. You're a means to an end. The only reason he doesn't kill them, obviously, once they get on the beach, is because Ellie says, "Look, don't kill them." Which again is that's the only reason I think they exist. It's just to say, look, Ellie is in this man's head.
I thought that was the weakest point. Actually, I thought they were the worst characters in the game.
Oh no, I think they had to exist. I like them. They had to die.
They didn't really add much, though. I didn't think they're just. You knew that they were just going to be cannon fodder.
I think
eventually.
it showed that there were other people trying to do the same.
Yeah,
like there were other people like them. They were alive for different reasons, I guess, but they were like another two people.
I think it needed that because otherwise you have that syndrome thing that Infinite did badly of having it's a world full of crazy people. You needed to have those pockets of people because otherwise the idea of these raiders going around trying to find people wouldn't make sense if there weren't actually people out there for them to find.
Yeah, I also think as well that even though I think most people have said, I knew that was going to happen. I knew the kid was going to turn and I knew the brother would kill himself. And that's one of the things I did kind of telegraph a bit. But it needed that. Some things do need to tick certain boxes. And there are other things that Naughty Dog do gameplay-wise, which I don't think they need to tick, but we don't need to talk about that now. And I think the fact that you do get to know them, I did warm to them a little bit.
Yeah,
I think the point when Joel and Sam are separated from Ellie and Henry.
Is
the right way around? Yeah. And no, a bit as well when you're in that underground thing and you have to fight with Sam's a little kid, right?
Yeah.
You have to fight with him for a bit, so it builds that bond a little bit. And then to see him turn, to see his fear, and it's the pace of it all. Naughty Dog kill those motherfuckers off in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've just been with him for the last hour and a half. It's like it's done so quickly. And even though that is standard zombie, I can't use the word zombie, but that kind of...
It is a shorthand. It's the same thing.
Meet people, get to know them. One of them becomes a zombie, the other person dies. It had to do it because it grounded it in a certain reality and also showed to a certain extent that it's not a safe world. Do you know what I mean? There are people still turning. There are people trying to survive and failing.
Which one's the older one?
I think Henry's the older one.
Yeah,
But I may be
Henry.
wrong.
I was surprised that they killed him off the way that they did.
Shot himself in the head.
Just that quickly. I thought perhaps they were building that character out to be a stronger character than he might have been.
But that's why I like it.
He
Because I
was
saw
strong.
that too.
He was a strong character to be alive, but then this was enough. He couldn't take any more.
That he was basically, it felt like
He was
lost
alive
the rest
for
of his
him.
family. He was living for him.
Yeah.
And when that was gone, he just thought, fuck it.
Also, without those characters, you wouldn't have that lovely bit when she gives him the doll, which I loved. When she gives him the action figure, and obviously just I'm dead, I'm screwed. But that conversation they have, like I think you just mentioned a minute ago, is just it's almost the things that the adults are probably thinking but don't say.
Yeah.
Like when they say Sam says something like, "Do you think they're the same people inside?" and they're just trying to get out but they can't. And that's a really kind of poignant message.
It's the stuff, but it's the stuff that the adults maybe talked about at some point, but the people who are surviving don't
think about it
because you can't.
Exactly. They're actually discussing what is this disease.
Something
if
that
this
is actually
happens to me, what would happen to me?
Something that's amazing about The Last of Us, actually, and I think deserves a shitload of credit, is just the way that they have made it. So, the female characters in that game are incredible.
Yeah.
There's not a single female character in it that I looked at and thought, oh, that's a bit embarrassing.
There are no female raiders, though, or anything like that. Do you notice that?
Is that true?
Yeah. There are female clickers and infected, obviously, but there's no female...
I hadn't noticed that. That's a shame, actually. But in terms of actually the characters...
Yeah, that's a side point. That's a different...
I wonder why, though. That is an interesting point.
Because I guess maybe people would have responded badly to the whole violence and...
Possibly. Maybe that might have been too much.
Yeah.
But I think the way that it does have that kind of screwed up world sense of being like, look, it doesn't matter. It's like anyone who's survived this long, it's been 20 years, the world is fucked. Anyone who survived this long is badass. And it's like, it does kind of make sense that the whole system would go out of the way. And it's like, it wouldn't be about gender roles anymore. It would just be like, either you're tough, and you survive.
Look at Tess. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, Tess is
an amazing character.
Tess is probably the strongest person. She only dies because she decides to die. Do you know what I mean? Like she's been alive just as long as Joel. If anything,
she's clearly the leader of the two.
Exactly, and she dies because she realizes she has to die. She doesn't get killed by accident. She never gets bitten. She realizes she got created.
Did she get bitten? I thought
she was bitten. Yeah.
That's why she agreed to just basically
I forgot about that. All right, shut my mouth. She gets bitten. She's shit.
But no, I like the way that it's kind of faintly insinuated that her and Joel might have some sort of romantic connection, but it's never confirmed or anything. Yeah. I like that, the way it doesn't do that whole like, oh, she was, me and Tess.
We go way back.
It feels like, and it's the same when you meet your brother and his partner. It's like,
oh man, I love
the romantic in it is like, it's almost a secondary thing. You can tell that these relationships have been forged through collaboration in almost survival and combat, and so. It's not like, oh, Tess. It's kind of hinted because she says, oh, after all this, we'll settle down for a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm stealing this from somebody on our forum. I apologise because I can't remember who wrote it. But the really interesting about the bit when you meet the brother, who, by the way, looks like a Baldwin. That's really weird. It's just like Stephen Baldwin.
He does.
Now we know that Stephen Baldwin used to be in the Fireflies, right? And he left. Now the question is, why did he leave? Because he seems like the most decent person in the whole thing. He's genuinely trying to make the best of a bad situation for lots of people. He settled down, even from the start, he goes to help his brother and his daughter. He seems like and he stops the only reason they don't pick up that guy during the prologue is because Joel says not to, not him. He seems like a good person. So why would he leave the Fireflies? We don't know. Let's say the Fireflies had successfully extracted this thing from Ellie. They come up with a cure. Would they have used it to cure mankind? Would they have used it to control things? Are the Fireflies actually a good organisation?
Because they were described as terrorists, right?
That's right. We don't naturally know what their motives are. And the fact that he left them, and he seems like the best guy of the bunch, is the one area where I go, maybe the Fireflies aren't everything that the game has said that they are. And maybe it's kind of someone like him who's actually trying to do.
But then the ambiguity throughout is just amazing. That bit... because I'd really started warming to the guy as well. The bit where you're sitting around the fire with the guy who saved Ellie, fought alongside Ellie, and he says, oh, it's funny because loads of our guys have been killed recently by a guy. I was just like,
what are we doing?
I felt my skin crawling.
Do you know that's Nolan North as well? That David character. I didn't know because am I allowed to say this? Oh, screw it. They can tell me
that's
off.
Clever. Because does that make you feel like, because Nolan North is such a video game hero, is that purposefully also, so you feel like more, that's genius.
But
I reckon
also as well, who knew? No, I didn't know it was Nolan North. It goes to show you can do voice acting Nolan North. Maybe you should try not using your ordinary voice all the time. But when we got, and Sony, if you're listening to this, I'm not trying to piss you off, I just think it's a really interesting point. When we got our sheet about, here's your Last of Us review code, here's the things we'd rather you didn't talk about, one of them was, don't mention who Nolan North is. I was like, I don't know Nolan North again. So I forgot about it, I played through the whole game, finished it, went away, took it all in, and then about 10 minutes went, wait a minute, who the hell was Nolan North? And I looked it up and he was David, and I was like, that's a great performance. But that whole bit, and that character especially, where, you're Ellie, you're by yourself, you feel vulnerable, you go deer hunting because you need food, you're taking, you don't know if Joel's alive or dead. You meet this guy.
It's the best bit in the game.
It was pretty good, wasn't it?
It's just
but
incredible.
you meet this guy who, as Ellie, you're instantly wary of because you're like, I don't know who you are. I'm in a really, really horrible world. You're probably going to try and do terrible things
but
to
he
me.
seems legit.
But he wins you over.
Yeah.
You do that whole fight when you're in that kind of claustrophobic
and you
bit,
think he's had so many
out.
times to fuck you over, and he doesn't.
And just that bit where he says there was a guy running around, you think, oh shit, that was Joel. It's like, oh, it's so well done. And then it just becomes the most disturbing, horrible, just creepy,
but also entirely believable. At no point does it feel like this character has transformed into this evil, like, oh no, I was a baddie all along. It just feels like he's been the same person all along. It's just that you didn't read it right.
Exactly.
It's the fact that when he was being kind to her and when he was looking after her, it's because he's a bit of a creep. And it's not even like pedo, because he is a sort of a bit pedo-y creepy, but actually in this world, things have probably just got so mental that sort of thing is just happening again.
No, that was that. I mean, all of Winter. I mean, that fight you do when it's Ellie versus David.
Because I saw somebody, I was chatting to on Twitter, I can't remember what it was, somebody just said, oh, it felt to me like Winter was padding, and I cannot disagree more.
Say what?
Winter felt like really important.
The bit leading up, the bit in Fall where he gets falls on the spike.
So good.
That bit leading all the way
Metal
through
Gear.
to winter, I thought that was the best bit.
Yeah, stunning. And you know what? This is actually the reason. And hopefully, if you have played the game, you'll agree with me on this, and you will try and equally stop people from watching it on YouTube instead of playing it. But the bit, that whole section, fucking hell, one of the cleverest bits of narrative game design I've ever seen. Because what it does is you see him fall on the spike, and you think, oh fuck. Because I've seen that happen to people in films and games, and people don't survive that.
That's the thing. But also, because they've already pulled. Well, because they haven't pulled any punches, you start thinking
I thought
they're going to kill him off halfway through the game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you think they would do this. They've done so much else. They would definitely do this.
And also the fact that at the start of the game you play as his daughter, you think, oh fuck, they've done a character switch before. They could do it again. And then when it comes to winter and you're playing as Ellie, you think, oh my God.
He's dead.
They've actually done it. I'm playing as Ellie for the rest of the game. And I thought, where's the story going to go from here?
Yeah.
And then this is what's so amazing, I thought, though, is so it says winter. And then you're in this forest hunting a deer. And I was so conflicted because on the one hand, you sort of think, I need to know if Joel's alive or not. And it's so upsetting that he might be dead. But also, this forest is one of those beautiful places in the game. And the snow is sparkling and it's incredible. So you have that mixed emotion. And then the fact that the first thing you're expected to do is hunt a deer. Now, first of all, that is something that you have to do cautiously, carefully. You can't,
I was so bad.
You can't rush it. Well, obviously, it is a bit scripted, but it gives you the sense that you're supposed to be taking your time
just quickly,
and doing it carefully.
I was so bad at it. I had a pop-up on screen that said, the deer literally went, the deer is this way, you moron. I was like, oh, sorry.
You have to follow the... at one point, you follow the blood.
Yeah,
follow the blood later
I wasn't very good.
But
anyway,
again,
keep talking.
it's the fact that you have just watched somebody who's really important hobbling around with an industry and dying, and then you're reminded of it with this parallel of you hunting down a deer and watching it hobble off. It's just such a, obviously in the game time has passed, but to you it hasn't. And that's a very clever technique in the way that it's like, this is horrible, I'm watching something hobble away that I'm killing after I've just watched something so horrible. So it's constantly, it won't let you forget about Joel, because that deer with arrows in it is a constant reminder of Joel. And yet it forces you to fucking do this and forces you to go through this slow, protracted process when in your head you're panicked and all you want to do is rush through it so you can find out if Joel's alive or not.
I mean, it's genius.
It's actual genius.
It's like Pulp Fiction kind of storytelling, isn't it? Where you kind of jump back and forth. But I mean, the winter was just incredible because it was this awesome thing of knowing the danger Ellie was in because you're controlling Ellie, and then jumping to her savior, who I think is maybe the only time in the game where you know more than him. Because you know where she is.
Yeah,
but as
you
Joel,
can't find it.
You can't find it because you don't know where you're supposed to go.
Because of the blizzard,
Exactly. So it's just... And I mean, that bit where you have to... Both with Ellie when she's trying to leave and Joel when he's trying to find her. I mean, I didn't know where the hell I was supposed to go because you can't see anything.
The blizzard was genius, actually. I mean, just aesthetically, I love the way that they'd done it really differently. Most of the time, they actually use kind of like in Call of Duty and stuff, when you play Blizzard levels, they just basically limit the distance which you can see. But in this, they'd used really heavy bloom effects.
Oh, yeah, you can
so
see
it meant that
anything.
everything almost had a glow to the point of it just being like you couldn't fixate on anything.
Yeah.
It was really smart.
No, like I say, I think the way that all builds up and how it culminates with that fight with, Ellie and
that bit,
David, which is terrifying. I don't think I played I call it a boss fight.
I was really scared.
I was terrified. Because he's running around with a flipping knife.
It's the final bit. The final bit when he's crawling around, and I actually it was terrifying. But that was one of the few things in the game that I wasn't 100% sold on, because it felt like the last stage of that felt like a boss fight, and it felt like there was a way to do it. And when I worked out the way, even the fact the cutscene was set to be in that part of the restaurant. And was it the same for you guys? I did it in the kind of towards the front of the restaurant near doors, but on the right.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
I did as well, yeah.
Because nowhere else seemed to work. Everywhere else, it seemed that he always turned around and knew I was there. But when I did it there, by stepping on the glass and then going behind him, it felt like that was the only part of the restaurant where the blocks you could run around, because obviously it was like Pac-Man in a way, were tight enough that you could do it. So it was a clever way of fencing you off into that area.
But it was still terrifying.
But I didn't it was fucking scary,
I'll give him
man.
props for that. I felt I didn't want to make a mistake. I literally thought, I don't want him to find me.
Because when he found you, he caught me.
Man, he 18 rated game right there.
Yeah.
Like,
Not
you
nice.
get murked, yeah.
But that whole section was just, especially because at first you feel quite confident because you like stab him a couple of times, and then at the end it's just like, oh God, you can't even see where he's coming from.
Oh, man, absolutely terrifying. I can't believe anyone said winter was padding. I think that's probably the high.
I think you need winter, because I think it's that way that without that feeling of also, because the thing is, she pretty much, apart from the passing out from the smoke fumes, she actually looked after herself. Like that's what you got to remember in that section. She kills him on her own. And that is important because it means that at the end you can't just be like, oh, well, it's good that Joel saved her because he needs to look after her. Because actually it's like, well, no, actually it does just, for me, hammers home that thing of being like, Joel's done this for personal reasons. He's done this because he knows if he doesn't, it's going to psychologically break him.
Yeah.
And he's just basically, he is as being as selfish and survival focused as he is when he's smashing someone's skull in. It's just like, to him, it's just personal survival. And he needs this.
Yeah.
The padding comment's weird because, I mean, what I found really clever was that each season almost felt like a self-contained story.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And, I mean, Naughty Dog could so easily have just gone with, it's a similar gameplay style throughout the whole thing, just in a different time of year, just to make the environment look different. But the fact that each season actually felt different as well, I thought was very clever.
And also, it's like, I wonder how they got there. It's one of those things I'd love to interview these guys like really in depth because, and it's one of the irritating things about what we do a lot of the time is the time you get to talk to developers about their games is in the run-up to launch, when actually the time you really want to sit down and talk to them is afterwards. And in this case in particular, I wonder if they edited it like a film, because at times it felt like you were going through a city. I remember the bit where in the start where it's like, we need to get to that bridge. And the bridge seemed really far away. And then you got a bit closer and you looked and you're like, it's still really far away. And then suddenly it like jumped and it was like, oh yeah, you're really close to it now. And I do wonder, I love the way they did that, like a film of almost being like, it kind of feels like it's dragging here now. Let's just take this out. And just jump you through.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought
and actually,
really
cinematically, the jump cuts, like you said right at the start of the game where it went bump, Naughty Dog. I've got to say,
tight.
people say like, oh, games borrowed from Hollywood. But Jesus, like, I watch a lot of films and the way it was edited, as in like the jump cuts between like cutscenes, game, logos, the timing is impeccable. It's edited like an amazing film.
You know they've just tested it so many times just to get it absolutely spot on.
And that technically must be so hard because the way it jumps between like cutscenes and stuff, it's like down to the beat, the timing is perfect, which means it's not even just a case of going, oh, we've got a loading scene here now. They've had, somebody has fought for that. There's a narrative director who said, I don't care if it can't load quickly enough. It needs to load immediately. If you can't do that, we can't.
That's what you were saying. They use cutscenes well so that they can do whatever they want in a cutscene because it's not a game engine, but it's a rendered bit, so they can do like the tight cuts and stuff in that.
Yeah, precisely. If they need to do that, they just jump to it. Like there's a wonderful bit early on where it's like it cuts from Joel being like awake in the day to immediately cuts to him like asleep in the middle of the night. And it doesn't do a
it's so good,
doesn't do a crossfade to like later that night,
just does
which is what video games do. It just cuts it because in films do that all the time because films don't insult your intelligence. With good films, they just go, they just do that, and you immediately go, oh, it's night now. It's later today.
Yeah, because we understand that that's what happens in the real world.
Yeah, it doesn't need to pop up saying 6 hours later. Like we don't need to know that. We can work it out.
Also, I think we need to, because I imagine we're getting to the point where we'll wrap things up. We need to talk about the bit where you look at the giraffes, which could be the most beautiful moment in anything. Don't you laugh at the giraffes, Dave? I almost cried during that.
I thought the animation was a bit off, if I'm going to criticise anything. But no, I love the giraffe. It was really good.
Do you know what I thought? I genuinely worried. I thought, oh no, it's going to be zombie giraffe. I thought it's going to bite Ellie. That's what I thought. And then she's going to be like, no,
not the zombie giraffe.
It's like the Louis C.K. joke when he talks about sending his daughter to look at a pony and the pony bites her and he feels like the worst dad ever. I literally thought, I wanted to drag her. You don't look at that giraffe, Ellie.
I was a bit reticent actually when it was that thing of going over towards it. I was like, is this going to be a jump scare?
I was worried, yeah.
I'll tell you what, that's another amazing thing for a game that's essentially a zombie game. Not pretty much aren't really any jump scares.
No
I think there was one. The scariest part in that game, I've mentioned this before, but let's do it again. Monkeys
scared me a
they
bit.
could bite you and they could give you a thing.
Especially when you read a thing about that.
Yeah, it's like, but these monkeys were nice. Oh no, shit, they're all infected.
Yeah, that guy was a muppet. He's like, I'm going to let them out of the cages. Oh, I've got bitten one immediately. How could this have happened?
I tell you what, very quickly, that giraffe bit. The first thing I thought of was Jurassic Park. You know when you meet
very much like Jurassic Park.
Just that bit where they're sitting in the tree or whatever they're sitting in.
I imagine they probably looked at that
it's
scene.
It's a nice giraffe.
But I mean, when you can just sit there and you hit X or Y, whatever it is, and you just sort of sit there and have a conversation. The best thing about it is it lets you decide when that moment ends. You decide when you walk away. And I think that to me is that is the culminating moment where like this is the, for lack of a better term, family.
I spent a lot of time just watching the giraffes outside.
Oh,
you know, when
they walked off. Yeah.
I watched them until they'd gone completely.
Me too.
Just watching them.
Me too.
It's one of those things where, like I say, you had that. It's almost like when you're in the forest and the ice and the snow. It's a really beautiful moment. It's like a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But you can't appreciate it because you're in turmoil. But that's one of those things where you're at that stage in the game. You're in you're in an uncomfortable position because you can tell that there's this weird air between the two.
Something's going to happen.
And you kind of think, it's not a great place. But at the same time, instead of being shattered and unable to focus on something, you're just a bit emotionally unstable. And it means when you see that kind of giraffe thing, it's already opened your heart, and you just go, oh man, this is making me melt.
It's one of the few moments where it's like, this could just be a father-daughter day out to the zoo or something like that. It's very, very based in reality. And also, she has been upset. You've had a chat with her. You've cheered her up. And at that point, it is calm. It is calm. Obviously, there is always a horrible ambience in the air. But it is like, this is what it would be like.
It felt like that was the bit to me where this is the only bit that's going to be happy. You go through that door, it's going to turn very bad.
Yeah, totally. I sort of took it as, is this a goodbye? Is this the final moment of them being happy together and like a send off kind of thing? But
it's to me, the atmosphere in that game is what makes it. Because you go from stuff like that again. I think I've mentioned this before, to the bit where. This was the scariest bit in the game for me, where Joel is in the whatever that building is, and you get the key card. Oh, well, you get the key card. Now I was so scared when I got that bit.
I tried that about 8 times.
I tried it about 20 times, going, "Please don't make me go back in there." And when I realised I had to, I was so mad because I was like, "I don't want to." And as soon as I turned that generator on,
when that generator went on, something's going to happen.
I ran. I did. I legged it. I was like, I do not have the balls. I do not have the mental strength. I just have to get out of this room. And I ran, and I just kind of fired my shotgun like a mentalist, anything that came at me. And when I got through that door, much like he kind of puts his hands on his legs and go, I kind of went, thank gosh for that. What game does that? I mean, I get far too easily into games. I can suspend my deletes far too easily. But to actually feel on edge and like I was in danger, I can't think of any game that's ever
actually,
done that.
I can tell you what it is. This, in my regards, one of the many things that's amazing about Last of Us is it's basically the spiritual successor to Resident Evil 4.
Well, that's very true,
it's the best Resident Evil game ever made.
Yeah,
it's so true.
It's like the reason Resi 4 was amazing, and I'm going to talk about this extensively in my video, is the fact that it did this thing of being like, oh shit, this is really scary, you don't have any ammo, and then being like, you've got quite a bit of ammo now, and then having something that shits you up so much that it's like, oh, you just shot all your ammo because you were scared.
Exactly.
And now you don't have any ammo again, and having this constant thing of being like, feeling like I'm on top of this, and then feeling like I'm not on top of this, and keeping the curve going back and forth the whole way.
Capcom have obviously gone so much the other way.
And
they must be looking at this going,
no, and I just think as well, that's why it's so good that you don't come across I'm going to call them zombies, I'm sorry, infected.
It's easier.
That's why you don't come across, that's why it's
it
good
really is. A lot of people
say,
they're not zombies. It's semantics, seriously.
Oh yeah, they're the undead, quote unquote. But I mean, the fact that these battles, for lack of a better term, are so well spaced out, it means A, when you come across one, Naughty Dog are going to treat it like a big deal. And B, because of the thing you went through last time, which was such a nightmare, instantly your body, mostly through muscle memory, for lack of a better word, instantly goes into, oh shit. And you're scared straight away.
Even when you die, you're going to come back to life. It's so horrible.
Yeah.
Every time a clicker gets you, it's horrid.
The noise of the bloaters ripping your skull open like
awful.
A pineapple.
That's it. I mean, the only bit I really don't like in the entire game is the first time you meet a bloater and they treat it like a boss fight. It's one of the only times you can't run. There's 2 occasions where you can't run away from a bloater. One of which is when you're in there and it treats it like a boss fight, and one is when you're Ellie with David in that building, you have to kill it. I wasn't a massive fan of the second one, but you just throw Molotovs and it's fine. But the first one, I just thought, it just didn't need to be that way. I felt for the first time I was sort of broken out of the experience, and I feel like I'm in a game world now, and that sucks. It's not that big a deal.
I know
it's
what
such
you mean.
a blip on a beautiful radar, but it's just, that's when, that is not what I needed, because I didn't feel scared, I just felt stressed, and not in a good way. And then when you kind of juxtapose that with bits like the key card, where I just feel so immersed that I can't actually believe I'm playing a video game, and I'm like, so you don't need to do the conventional things to win me over.
I love the way that it's just so consistently dangerous, though. Just like the way that you get better guns and you can upgrade them, but it never really makes the scenarios easier. I actually, towards the end of the game, I was like, I've got loads of ammo, but it's not actually.
And you never get like
doesn't
the
make a
super
difference.
Shotgun that can shoot like super powerful bullets or anything.
No, and it's just the fact that you're so fragile. It's like, even though you're tough, it's like you get flanked
you're a human
really
being.
quickly.
Yeah.
When they flank you, they're really good at that. And I love the way that most of the fight, even when you are deciding I'm going to fight, it's that thing of you take a few shots and then you run away, you change your position so they don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Especially in that final section where it is like a gunfight. Yeah. That's when you realise you become a survivor because you can do this, you can outwit these guys.
Yeah.
But even, as you say, like even when you get good at sneaking past all the baddies, like the undeady dudes, like it can go so badly so quickly.
Yeah.
And the amount of fights where I went in with a real plan and ended up just hacking my way through with an axe and throwing a Molotov and
especially
just sprinting.
during the hospital bit at the end. My gosh, my plans went to hell. I had this whole plan. I thought I'm going to sneak that, and I wound up, I think, machine gunning most of them to death. And I was like, this has not gone well at all. And that bit at the end where it's the double doors, you know Ellie's through those doors, and you've got about 12 guards in your way. If anyone has stealthed past that, let me know. I got to the very end of that corridor, and there's 3 people by the door, and I'm like,
do you have
what
to shoot the surgeon?
I don't know.
Because I just fucking shot
one of the
him.
bits, yeah.
I didn't know this.
I thought about it for a second. I thought, no, just shoot him. Couldn't, because I thought these guys aren't going to do anything. But I thought, what if they do?
Yeah. I just shot what basically I was in Joel's head and I literally walked through the door, just blasted one through the chest.
The first one is holding the scalpel at you. If you go up to him, you get trigger point and you can push triangle and he takes the scalpel and he plunges it into his face.
Really?
Yeah.
What? You see, that would have annoyed me because I would have been doing that as being like, all right, mate, don't do anything.
No, he goes up to him because that was the second time when I went back, a triangle, and I was like, oh, maybe this means he's going to, genuinely how stupid I am, maybe this means he's going to shake his hand and go, you do what you've got to do. Instead,
it's an Animal Crossing, mate.
Yeah. He grabs a scalpel and he stabs it in his hand because he did that. You know what I did? I shot the other 2 as well. I was like, oh, fine, we're going all out with this.
I left one of them I left. The one on the floor at the back.
Yeah.
I think she was carrying down. Or
oh, no, she got shot in the head.
I didn't shoot her because I thought she's not doing anything.
I just shot one of them. I shot the one with the scalpel because I thought you might be risk. And I shot him with that pistol with the scope on it. So it was quite excessive force for right through the chest, right through the heart. And then the other one, the other 2 cowered in the morning and said, oh my God, you're a monster. And I thought, yeah, I am. And that's fine. Because,
did you get out? Because I somehow magically managed to get out on my first, when you got on your arms and you're running away. I somehow managed to get out first time.
I did.
I just guessed.
I didn't.
And
I think it's fairly obvious when I played it second time. It is obvious where you're going to go.
You follow the lights, I think.
First time I was, this is really annoying, not really related. During that bit, Tesco man buzzed at the door.
That's when you just think,
I knew, I was waiting because he was coming between 9 and 10. 9 and 10. I knew it was going to happen. I thought, I can't just sit here and do nothing for an hour. I'm going to try and finish it before he comes.
Yeah.
And it was like 9:45, and I was Ellie, and I was trying to get out, and then ding at the door. I was like
that's up there in the top 10 worst gaming moments ever.
I thought you were going to say Tess was at the door then. I thought, what happened in your world? Oh, I'm not dead.
He chose a different route. Yeah, you can save her.
When he's in the car at the end and he's driving away and it flashes back. Well, that too, but when it flashes back and he shoots that Marlene woman in the head, I was like, Joel, you're messed up, mate. What are you doing? Like, this woman literally said, I'd like to save mankind. And Joel went, screw you. I want to leave with my little girl. That's the thing.
Again, is that another of those moments where, because Ellie's unconscious, it's just you see Joel in his purest form.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he wouldn't do that if she was awake.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah.
One thing that was never explored, which I kind of expected it to, and I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that they didn't. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or not, but basically just before the game came out, there was an event that I went along to, and they had a talk from one of the consultants that worked on the game, and he's a university lecturer. I don't know if he's a doctoral professor, but he basically... The virus, the fungal virus, is based on a real life fungal infection that affects. It's like tropical wildlife, like ants and things like that. And they showed a video of this thing happening in the real world, and basically this thing takes over the mind of. It was a grasshopper they showed, and they said that the grasshopper is conscious. It knows what it's doing, but it's driven to suicide by this thing that's taking over its mind by jumping into water to let this thing swim out of it.
Yeah.
It's like a worm. So what I thought they were getting at was that the clickers and the infected are all still conscious. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, but they
have no control over what they're doing.
That's what Simon was saying. Is it's almost like that is something I thought as well, and it's hinted at when the kids start talking about it.
And it's the fact, the animations, the clickers. It's like this sort of tick where they shake their head and they kind of put their hands up as if like, no, what am I doing? And they kind of walk around with this kind of. I don't know.
Maybe it's supposed to be
I think
ambiguous.
you're supposed to think about that because the way the kids talk about that is that's the sort of thing that if you were a kid, you would talk about because they haven't been alive for that long, but you know.
But then I thought right at the end, it will throw that out there that these guys that you've killed are still human beings.
But I think you're supposed to.
Maybe you're supposed to come about by yourself. Obviously, the runners when they don't know you're there, just sit there with their hands over there, screaming, as if fuck, I can't handle this. So maybe it's just supposed to implant it without actually taking.
Because if it
story,
had, the problem is with that is how would you say that? Who would say that?
Yeah.
Because any adult character in the world who said, "Oh, but maybe there are people inside,"
that's the thing. I thought it might
would be too soft to have survived.
I thought it might show up in one of those, one of the dictaphones, the medical records.
It may do.
End.
I didn't get them all. I don't know. Maybe there is something
but,
there.
Yeah,
I get the impression that's because I get the impression. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
but I think that's the sort of thing that would have been happening. In
it
the
maybe
first
would have
couple
felt
of
forced,
years,
but
I think after 20 years, that's the sort of conversation that people have probably stopped having because they sort of think, "Oh, we've got bigger fish to fry."
Did you find the dictaphone with the doctor talking about Ellie?
Yeah, there's a couple, weren't there?
Because there's that one which essentially, this is why I kind of bought into the whole "it's got to be done," which essentially says we will cure this disease if we operate on this girl. There's one that pretty much
Doctors
says
are always pretty optimistic.
Well, again, you can argue that too, but I was just that's the reason I thought.
Yeah,
that's when I accepted that if I could let it happen, I was going to let it happen.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, we should probably wrap this up now because we're getting to that point. But I'd like to just finish on saying I think the thing that is fantastic about this game is obviously we talked about it. I think we can all agree it's like mechanically a really solid game, really clever in lots of ways, and also fantastic story, fantastic characters. But I think what this game should be remembered for is the fact that it is the ambiguity, and it's not us just coming out and going, was it all a dream or not? Yeah. It's the fact that we have clearly all related to this story and related to the characters and taken away something else from it. And actually, really, what we're talking about here is not the story and what happened, but we're kind of like talking about our own perspectives on life and relationships.
Oh, massively so.
And when the fact that games have just started doing that, where really what we're talking about is our own outlooks on the world and our own outlooks on psychology, that's fucking cool,
I completely agree. Like, especially that last word, I think you take it the way that you want to take it, shaped on your own experiences. I want to think that Ellie believed it because she's an innocent young girl. You think otherwise, but it all ties into A, the way you played the game, B, the way you want to perceive the characters, and C, the way your own kind of beliefs in the real world. Yeah. And that's what the best kind of movies do. Yeah. The best kind of movies leave you with a message almost they're trying to send, but they let you come to your own almost moral conclusion based on your own world. And a few games do, not many, and not many do it as well as this.
It's like, it's not what does it mean, it's what does it mean to you.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And that's
the thing, because like as you said, Dave, Steve, in a way, is right. If you kind of take a step back and you wrote this story down, you probably would go, okay, it's a kind of standard story. But execution is everything. Yeah. And, how they make sense to you is what's important. And Naughty Dog have done just a 10 out of 10 job for
it
me.
Is, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely 10 out of 10. And it is one of those things where it's not another one of those games where it's like the stories and the cutscenes. And I think actually that this weird culture of people watching playthroughs of games on YouTube and stuff, I'm quite down on that for story-based driven things. I think it's defeating the point, and I think it's an insult to the medium. But I think that's the fault of many games in the medium that you can do that.
It's funny what you just said there. I think hammers the point home. Everyone says, "Oh, games, movies, games." This game works because you interact with the characters. Yeah, it wouldn't work as well as a big screen, and that's the point. You won't get the same out of it. Excuse me. If you watch it, if you play it pad in hand, which gives you that kind of immersion, for lack of a better word, you'll get more out of it. I
was saying to Simon the other day, I think it's a very different game, but GTA 4, I can see a lot of similarities in this to that, in the way that you relate to the characters, in the way that they do things that seem believable, and they talk to other people in a believable way, and it's not just, here's a bit of game, here's a cutscene, it's the whole game is the story as well.
Yeah.
And I think that in GTA 4, it's not, I don't think, and now it's nowhere near as accomplished as this is doing it. But I think looking back at some bits of that, there are similarities.
Yeah. No, definitely Red Dead did it well as well.
But it is really essential stuff. And I think it is one of the best games of the generation. I think it's up there with Red Dead and Portal 2.
Oh, yeah, for me. I mean, the games that stand out, Red Dead there, this would be there. I say Gears of War 2, but that's for completely different. That's for pure if you just want to have fun. No, if someone said
it's the worst one.
One of the what I mean is it's just pure entertainment. Gears of War. It's just a laugh. There's no poignancy to it, but it's just stupid fun.
There is some poignancy.
Well, yeah, when Dom finds his dead wife in a coffin, whatever it was. Spoilers from 2011.
Yeah, I think it's.
But
beyond.
If you do, this is a shameless plug. But if you do want to get involved, like I say, I did do a feast on it, VideoGamer. There's a little conversation going now. I'm chirping you when I can. Just please, I'd like to know what everybody thinks. I mean, you don't have to do it there. Do it in the forum, tweet us, Facebook, whatever. But definitely, I'm so intrigued to see what people think.
There's already some really interesting chat going on in that thread after your article. So it's well worth going there just so you can join in with that. Because as I say, it is just one of those things where it reflects us. I think it's interesting. It's a game about people.
It's brilliant. Like I say,
it's fucking awesome.
It's the best game on the PS3. It's probably I think for me it's Red Dead and that really for this
I think
generation.
history,
Maybe I've forgotten something else, but yeah, those two games stand
and I
out for me
bet
massively.
all of the hats on it that this game will be remembered much more fondly than Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah.
I think there will be some people that will go either way, but for me, this
I've
is
forgotten
definitely
about Infinite already.
But I think the other thing as well is that it's one of the only games where it probably will happen because of the industry we live in. Doesn't need a sequel. It's a perfect story. It's perfect. It does not need anything else. It's so well contained. If they do anything else, leave these two people alone.
And you know what? I do think that I almost wouldn't be surprised because I think Naughty Dog are in a position now, especially with how Sony are doing things now, where they clearly are going for that. They're going for a cinematic style, but they're not like trying to ape Hollywood, and I think that's cool. And also, I kind of feel like in the same way that the guys who did Heavy Rain, Quantic Dream, or whatever, and are now doing Beyond Two Souls.
I'm worried about that.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to be great, to be honest. But I think the point I'm trying to get at is I almost feel like they've done their time with Uncharted and Uncharted 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I think they've earned a lot of money from that. They've earned a lot of kudos from that. And I now feel and hope that as a studio, they'll be able to do that thing of being like, in the same way that Looper was like from the director of They will actually be able to go and do something. Hey, here's something similar, but it's like from the maker of the Uncharted series and The Last of Us. And that will be strong enough in the same way that, Rockstar can just go, here's a cowboy game. We made GTA. And then basically people will just come and suck them off from miles away. I'm hoping that that's what they'll do.
There's single player DLC coming up though.
Side story. It's not Joel Red. It's a side story that apparently fills in extra bits of a story you saw in the game.
It's probably his brother, isn't it?
I think it's his brother.
Could
I
it
spent
be
money on
Ish?
his brother.
Because they can use the same animations for running.
Could be.
It's in the notes, isn't it?
I think it'd be his brother though. I think it'll be something to do with maybe what happens. What happens to his brother after he leaves him? Who knows? Maybe something.
Who knows? Hopefully he's all right. I liked him. He's a nice
Stephen
man.
Baldwin.
But thank you very much for joining us on this Last of Us super special podcast. We are going to try and make a habit of doing these for big games, not for all of them, but for games that we think
games that need to be talked about.
Need to be talked about.
Yeah.
The games that need to be talked about.
That's what we call the series.
I feel like it's a Werther's original.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if you have enjoyed us, then do. Oh God, I should have said that. If you have enjoyed us, then please don't tell the police. No, feel free to tell your mates about it and all that. We are on iTunes, and obviously we do the weekly podcast as well, which will be out tomorrow. Do come in and join in with our rambling discussion and tell everyone that they're an idiot on the forums, etc.
Why not?
But yeah, my name's Matt Lee's been joined by Simon Miller.
Thank you, my friends.
Dave Scammell.
See you later.
And Tom Orry.
Bye.
Bye.